Thanks for the on-ramp today, Chris. I feel like I'm feeling good. I
That was a
came
that
I
was a
came
good
in,
one.
I came into the on-ramp feeling like I had some things on my mind and I wasn't thinking about getting them off my mind, but you were able to get me to talk about it, so thanks.
Summer school, eh? Summer school session.
We just had that moment where we get off the school bus and the bell hasn't rung yet, and you're just kind of walking around the yard looking for someone to talk to. You find somebody, you have a really good chat, then the bell rings, and you got to go to class.
Yeah, that's true.
We are in class in session.
So I mean, that's cool because I mean, part of what class for us is Saturdays, I'm sure. Yeah, so we connected at just after what we were started chatting about 10 after 8. So we're an hour, 10 minutes later. And it's kind of like, okay, we got about 30, 40 minutes to drop some content here.
Which is awesome because it's kind of like pleasure and business rolled into one, right?
Yep.
We got to talk some family stuff, some personal stuff. Now we're going to talk some business.
Let's do some business.
Okay, so I want to start. I'm going back to Twitter, and what I want to say about Twitter is, I'm really loving the tweets I'm seeing from people who are pushing back on the whole marketing culture of Twitter and how edu celebrities or edu rock stars, if you want to call them that, are basically living on Twitter to sell their product from a particular brand. And what I'm really enjoying is I'm starting to see the script flip. Like, I'm starting to see more people say, I don't want to listen to this person talk about this book again. I don't want to listen to this person talk about the presentations they do on the weekends again. Because what's happening is people are being critical. They're using critical thinking skills, which we're teaching kids all the time. They're using them with respect to their life and what they're seeing come across their Twitter feed. And yesterday, I saw a couple of things, and it just brought me this wonderful feeling came over me of people are aware of what other people are doing and they're pushing back. They're like, I want nothing to do with this. Because unfortunately, I think this has happened because the people who are pushing a brand and trying to sell, that's all they're doing now. And it looks like a bot is running their Twitter account because the human side is gone. Even when some of these people tweet out human moments, people aren't reading them that way anymore. People are reading them as strategy to sell something, which that part makes me sad.
Mm-hmm.
That part makes me sad that, I see you and I get to know you, and then all of a sudden you have some product that you're pushing, which is fair, but you get to the point where everything you do is about the product. So you communicating with me about an experience at work, I don't see it as authentic anymore. I don't see it as you really care what's happening to me at work. I see it as you're trying to get into my head because you're going to do something to make me want to buy your product. And that pisses me off. So big thumbs up this week in the first week of summer school, where I'm 100% with these people who are pushing back. And the people who are pushing back, I see them as, I don't even like using the term, but like as an edu rock star. But they're not selling anything. They're just being themselves and they're calling people out on nonsense. And I do feel bad for the people pushing their product, but I kind of don't. Because if you've bothered enough people that now they're saying, back off. Like, I'm going to mute you or block you. I'm sick and tired of hearing everything you say is about trying to sell your product, not about anything else, which is your right, but I'm shutting you down and I'm calling you out.
There was I loved what Sunil Singh, who's he? He's at Math Garden, eh? And there was part of a conversation that he was a part of, and I can't find the tweet, but I really liked the way that he put it, because he was he took a little bit of a middle ground on this, talking about conditional, I think it was conditional empathy. So this idea that, as long as, actually, you know what, I can't speak for him. I don't know the position, but I like that term conditional empathy because it made me think about the sort of the flip-flopping that can happen with your followers. And then it made me think about how the sort of the emotional fabric of your followers can change, how that looks in a public forum on Twitter, as in, before you were all in support of this person, now you're not in support of this person. They haven't changed. What's changed about you? And sometimes that part isn't fleshed out enough. So for example, if there was somebody that you loved and you've been following them forever and ever, and then your kind of perspective on how you use Twitter has changed, and then you start pushing back on some of these same people that maybe if you went back along your timeline, you'd see that you were a big proponent of them in the past. And I liked that idea of conditional empathy that he was pushing out, because I hadn't really considered or sort of crystallized the thinking like that. On one hand, I mean, maybe this is just the fickleness that social media breeds in people, that you feel like maybe it's also just the bully factor, that you feel that you can just reach out and say whatever the heck you want about somebody and there's no follow-up. But within this same conversation, I really, what I like, and this is something that's different in my observation of pushing back on our edu heroes, is that that empathy, the conditional empathy, I'm trying to find a place within what the definition of that would be. And I think somewhere in that idea of having an empathetic connection with whomever you are networked with on social media, Twitter in this particular fashion, I start to think about the truer the relationship feels. One of the factors about that is your inability to walk away from a conversation. There was a time when, and even for myself, and we've talked about this before, that if I didn't like what someone was posting, I would unfollow them. And we've talked about this before, like that has caused interesting conversations between me and some of the people that I connect with, as in, what does that mean when they see on their feed that I'm following and unfollowing, following and unfollowing? Like there's a statement being said that's never really fleshed out. So someone wouldn't necessarily understand my thinking. Am I obligated to share my thinking? No. But there's intent and impact here. My intent is to clean up my timeline so that I have a nice clear feed, that I have easier access to the information coming at me. But if I humanize the experience, the impact is it can make somebody wonder my integrity. Like, why am I jumping in and jumping out? I get that. Where I look at this kind of conditional empathy kind of flowing both ways is that my ability then, where I've changed my sort of practice here, is to sort of engage in what could be a harder conversation, or instead of just walking away, and I still use the mute button, but instead of just walking away or blocking or unfollowing, I'm trying to figure out, how do I approach these conversations and try and keep that person in the conversation? Because I'm going to stay. Not because I'm just going to plant my flag and say I'm staying here until I win, but just saying, this is it. How do I present that in a way that I'm still interested in what you have to say around this topic? I posted yesterday onto Twitter the idea just that there was something in my brain a few years back when I was watching my colleagues become brand ambassadors for different products. And I jumped in with Flipgrid, and then right away I was like, yeah, you know what? It's not for me. I don't want to put that plaque above my name. In some ways, it's also part of my thinking in just letting go of my Google certification. I didn't renew. Because again, part of it was representing the brand. I didn't want to do that anymore. So some of the individuals that have aligned themselves with a brand, so not something they've created, but just a brand in general, I think are in a similar position to individuals that have created their own brand. And right now, there's a very hardball push to represent sort of like that, the equity and social justice lens within your brand. Now, if you do it slick enough that nobody notices that you're also making money from it, that's the sort of the tension here. But I think that's where some of these discussions, when Sunil mentioned that conditional empathy, I think it's some people trying to figure out, how do I push back on some of these people? How do I look to my mentors, my EDU mentors, could have been EDU heroes, whatever. How do I push back on my mentors and actually engage them in a deeper conversation about their thinking? And in some cases, actually, no, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen any of these big spaces that have been tagged, and there are some pretty big brand names that are being taken to task right now. And you and I had that sidebar conversation on Twitter. You mentioning that all this brand has to do, one of the things to do is to sort of say that they're starting to kind of rep this perspective, to kind of open themselves back up again, and maybe take a little bit of the heat off themselves. My counter to that is that, but the system that they're sort of offering would also have to be broken down a bit, because they've kind of built their product based on some of these inequitable perceptions and realities. Like, they're just not, they don't have the product line to be able to represent the new thinking. So I don't know, to have them burn it all down and walk away from it. I also am deeply, it's not conditional, just deeply empathetic to the fact that if someone is repping their job on Twitter, and I had a great Twitter conversation just with Washburn. I forget, is it Mike Washburn?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's Mike Washburn. And I was talking to him about the importance of Twitter as the data that comes from it, and how that's associated with businesses, and why it is that some people pay attention to it more than others. So I get that. I'm not advertising my job per se when I talk about things that I do on social media. Like, there isn't a way that I can make more money, or I can sort of, on a fiscal level, gain from my job by sort of doing something on Twitter, representing a product, if I share something like that. But I do get that other individuals are promoting the work that they do, because Twitter for them is a marketing tool. So I'm aware that when you push back in an open sense, that's just like a slap to someone's product, you are in some way, you are kind of, you're sort of, you could be having a negative effect on their product. So I get that's a possibility. So again, when I come back to the conditional empathy, the place that I'm trying to find myself in there is that it's not conditional one way from my perspective, as in I'm placing conditions. I'm putting empathy between us, and what are the conditions for both of us to sort of stick in there. And the expectation that if someone were to keep asking me questions that are good questions with the intent to build knowledge and curiosity, I want to stay in those conversations. What I haven't seen yet, and this is people still trying to position their brands accordingly, is how do you do that if your entire brand is just not repping the reality that people are asking questions from? A little bit like, our conversation about buying a new car. When you introduce a factor into the conversation that isn't according to the salesperson's checklist, and you hold to it, you hold them there, that can get pretty messy pretty quickly. But yeah, hat tip to Sunil, because that got me thinking. That got me thinking about the conditions of empathy, not me setting conditions. The conditions of empathy in discussions around equity and social justice, which tends to be the frame here. That's the thing that a lot of brands are getting hit with. Twitter right now wants everyone to be Twitter, from my perspective, where I'm sitting, my PLN, but it seems to be that's the space. Like, if you're not if you don't have your finger on the pulse of social justice and equity, and understanding the threads leading up, the roots, the seeds, the context. It's a really astonishingly complex bit of kind of if-then statements you have to go through just in order to hit the post now, which is not a bad thing. But again, if your brand has never been looking in that direction, man.
I'm missing something here.
Okay.
I'm not seeing the tweets about equity and social justice. So it's like I'm looking at the puzzle and you're talking about the three pieces over here on the left, and I'm like, I've never seen them. Where are they? Like they were in the box. So if you could help me fill in the blanks a little bit.
Oh, like
so when I said to you, okay, so in my little brain, it's very simple. Some people have been calling out not just individuals, but I don't want to call it an organization, but an entire brand.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, why doesn't the brand just respond with, because one of the tweets was really simple. One of the tweets was like, hey, instead of reading these books and buying these books, why don't some of you teachers go outside and get some fresh air and enjoy some of your summer instead of being like hyper focused on this brand and all this publishing line and all their books and their authors. Are you telling me that somewhere along the way, I've missed out on a bunch of tweets where maybe people are saying, I'm not interested in your brand because you have one type of person who writes your books for you, middle-aged white men or middle-aged white women, and all you talk about is this topic, and these are the people talking about it, but you're missing a whole section of educators who come in different colors from different backgrounds and cultures who could speak to a similar topic in a way that might appeal to other people. Is that what's happening, or am I missing something?
Nope, that's at least what I've observed.
Okay.
And some of the there's conflation going on, as in there are some individuals that the pushback that they're getting is on their character and not their product. So it's shifting into that space. As in, if you had an issue with our Empathy Engines line of glasses, I think one of the spaces you could start to talk about it is the feasibility of the product. You could talk about, how, that product isn't wanted. At some point, the conversation could also shift to, well, Clough and Chids, like, why would this is just like, this is not a good thing to put into product. You can't be wise. You can't, you have no clue. So it shifts from the actual product's viability to the actual innovator's character. Basically, it shifts off the character. And then from there, it just kind of opens right up into, it gets really messy because we're no longer focusing on the quality of the product. We're no longer really talking about the character of the person. It gets conflated. And when the product is conflated with the people, as in that's the only element to it, I think that's where you see there's some people that are really going hard in a way that it seems bullish. It seems bullish. And part of it again is, is this I try and keep a point of view of, am I still, even if I'm not necessarily going to befriend a person, am I still building a real relationship with the person when I post? Because I could go harder. There's thoughts that I have that are just like sniper sharp, and but I kind of like I back it off. I'm like, no, like that's you. That's not the conversation. That's just you. Now I get that in the area of advocacy, that sniper sharpness is important to call out something that's sort of like so on the edge, and that thing that you're calling on the edge is doing you see that it is harmful, it's detrimental, it's actually any of the isms. Fine, let's call that out. In that space though, for me, I'm still trying to find what are the conditions of empathy that I can still have a conversation about that. If I choose to, let's be honest, in an open space like social media. So, being able to witness, being able to observe other people's conversations where the peeps are just kind of pushing back and forth on people that I feel like this is the idea, the conversation is no longer visible. It is about attacking the character of the person. I'm aware of that. And there are some spaces where that's happening, where people are being pushed back on hard, and there isn't the opportunity, there wasn't the opportunity for that any further discussion. Now, in one particular case, I did engage in conversation with the part of the individual that was posting counter to the brand. So that discussion was, this individual, actually, that is it's part of their agenda. They really do. They have their eyes on Twitter. They're watching Twitter and sort of waiting for sometimes individuals, sometimes different posts to pop up. And they are looking to kind of police and push back on it, right? But for me, I got to bring it back to me and how I use Twitter, observing spaces where it's just not about the brand anymore. It's sort of pushing beyond the brand into the people. And if we're pushing into the people, I'm trying to find ways to remain in conversation with those individuals. There was a whole part of where I first noticed this was there was a ditch book. I never get it right. Is it? And
ditch the text or something like that. Ditch
yeah.
the book. Yeah.
And there was a panel. This part of where this popped up is, I guess, at ISTE this year. There was a panel of professionals, and one of the comments that it got tagged with is that it was non-representative. Like, it wasn't representative in a way that, again, talking about that equity and social justice lens, it wasn't representative in according to the conditions of Twitter right now. And the wording on it, as far as them being, I forget what it was, professionals, educators, it used one of those kind of one of those bright tags that edu rock star kind of caliber. People pushed back and said, yeah, but where's this voice? Where's this person? And then that's embedded in, broader conversations around how representative ISTE is and how representative these conferences are. And then it just kind of goes, it gets really big really fast. So that was a thing that I sort of noticed when ISTE was popping up. And then it seems like some of these conversations have just continued. I've landed on them again and again and again.
Cool. I wonder why. I mean, I whether the brands are responding or not, I said to you, like, why don't you just respond with an authenticity? Like, why don't you just respond with, I'm sorry you feel like we're not equitable. It's something for us to look at and consider.
I think this is where those kind of statements, I think, are being made, but this is where the conversation shifts, where the apology that someone, here's where I think it gets, where some people are picking apart the moment, that there are individuals that are intolerant to the apology if the apology makes it about the viewer's misunderstanding. So it's that intent and impact thing. So if I say to you, Roland, I'm sorry that you, and then I identify whatever the impact is on you, without also acknowledging the fact that what I did could lead you to that space. So I make it about your response entirely, not about how I either created or I'm a part of a structure or a system that's designed to sort of be this way. Because I think that's what people are like. They're looking for blood. They want that first layer of apology is, some people have said that's just a way to deny your part in this.
I get that. But here's my position. My initial position on that is, I don't know if the brand needs to apologize, because this is the way I see it. Let's say you and I put together Empathy Engines, okay? And we think this is great product and people are buying it. And then somebody messages us and starts saying, like, you guys are just two dudes. Why is the female voice not part of this conversation? How come you've not gotten someone from like a female to examine this? How come you don't have someone from that gender involved?
Mhm.
And I might say, I'm sorry you feel that way. And if they dig deeper and they're like, no, I want you to apologize for not involving females, I might say, hold on now and listen to what I'm about to say. Chris and I created this. And him in his basement, me in my office on a podcast. This is our context. Two guys, two dads, two teachers chatting, and this is what we came up with. We didn't start by purposely saying we're not involving anybody else. And if we did, then we did. It wasn't based on gender or ethnicity. It was based on convenience. We're sitting here doing this and we put this thing together. So in a way, like, I don't know if the brand says, listen, my buddies were doing this cool stuff, so I asked them to write a book and I published it for them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what might be wrong is if they say, you know what? I don't want anybody of ethnic origin to write a book for my company. Then I think we're entering a different territory. If they're like, no, I purposely avoid having a black author in my publishing house, then my back gets up. But if they're like, no, I started this publishing company. My 3 white friends who happen to be males are all doing this shtick in EDU right now. And I thought, hey, why don't you put that into a book and I'll sell it for you? And that's their approach. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not going to push back. I might say, hey, if you want to make more money, you might want to consider some of these other people who are doing amazing stuff that don't look like your crew that you have right now and don't come from the same places. You might want to consider having them express their voice around this topic, because I think it's good business, if that's how you want to look at it.
Well, this is what makes it, I think, so challenging. If you were to decide that you wanted to bring to market an EDU product without an understanding or part of your mission statement, equity or social justice, without that lens, then I think you might want to wait. Like, don't put it out there with some sort of understanding of that or your position on it. I like that. I like what you're saying is that we would engage in conversation. I think the big trip up point here is that there isn't on blast responses to some of the questions that people are asking about these products. So the products, the people, the brand are not responding back either quick enough, clear enough, with as much empathy as people want. Like, it's just not, the reach outs aren't happening, which I don't know if that would help, because the code is changing all the time. So, okay, you want to speak to it, you're working on it, then you're not working on it fast enough. Like, there's a lot of different sort of curveballs that are thrown into this conversation. It just strikes me that right now, bringing any sort of and it could be my silo, it could be the following, it could be the PLN that I have, but it just seems to me that anyone that dares to sort of bring something forward right now into the current EDU market, whatever that is, different to everybody else, you got to have a handle on this sort of intent impact thing. Like, this is what I'd like to do with this thing. I need to consider how my representation of this thing will be interpreted, or how the impact is going to land on people, because someone's going to ask. Where is this voice in the thing that you're releasing? Where is this person? Why is this voice only in there? Why is this person in there? Like, I can't see anyone being able to not have some of that understanding coming into the current market. And I would argue, just from what I've observed, that some of the products that are in the EDU market right now, there isn't a simple way to start becoming more diverse in their product line. There isn't a simple way to do it. One, because of let's just say the direction they've been going. So walking that back to start something, challenging, right? The distance they've gone is the distance back, so to speak. There could be people that will not want to get involved with them now that this has been kind of called out. They're like, well, no, I get it, thank you, but I don't want to be the one-off in your roster. And then there's the other part. Will the client base allow them to change? Or does the client base need them to be that figurehead of the thing that they disagree with? It's really complex, it seems to me right now.
Oh, I'm glad we got to talk about this. And I don't know if it'll come up again, but
And dude, I don't even know what we've said. I just feel like this, you're right. Twitter, that was a perfect provocation. This all was happening this week on Twitter. I had a lot of shaking my head moments.
I don't mind the pushback. I think I'm a little bit sad that the people who are being pushed back aren't standing up. They stand up in a way like, I'm going to block you. I don't need this in my life. Well, that says something to me, the person who's just watching, the observer. It tells me, like, personally, I think I might have more empathy for the people who stand up for their product. Now, like, don't stand up and say you're a racist. That's not going to win me over. But if you just stand up and say, listen, this is what it is. Thank you for telling me what you're telling me. That's good feedback. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Now, I'm a little bit more sensitive to the issue because I am a person of ethnicity. So, would I like to see more representation there? Of course I would. But I go back to our empathy engine thing or Hulk Smash EDU.
Yeah.
You know how fast, like, and I know it's part of the fun. For me, it's fun. But I can't even imagine if that's what I was pushing every day, all the time. I'd be bored myself. But I'm not making a living off of it either, right? Like some of these people who are writing these books or doing these presentations, that's their livelihood now. And so they need to make money.
Yes.
But
yes, they do.
I feel like they're pushing themselves into a place where they're going to start losing money because of the way they're pushing to make the money, in my opinion. But they still got lots of fans. They got tons of followers who defend them to the hilt. That's how it goes, I guess.
There's an element of Wild West, it feels like right now when it comes to this. Do you think? Like, it's just maybe I'm inspired right now because that comes to mind. I'm watching Westworld right now. Like, but just that anything could happen.
There are gunslingers everywhere. And
I really do. One of the things that I'm really watching for, and this is where Sunil sparked me up, is looking to see what are the conditions of the relationship. What are the conditions of the relationship and why have they changed? You remember we were talking about last week. I would love to, again, back to that visualization and that ability to tag with notes, the relationships, the digital relationships that we make. Because to be able to go back and remember the version of the person or the poster that you kind of fell in love with, and being able to spend some time there when you're sort of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years later, and you're the person that is then saying, I wish you would change, honey. I wish you would change. Like you're trying to leverage change in the person. Yet if you go back and you look, you start to realize that maybe there was some consistency there. For better, for worse, there's consistency there. And to be able to sort of look at those relationships, because I think that's also the sort of this nature of Twitter, because it doesn't have the automatic human factor of face-to-face conversation all the time, which is just fundamental, elemental information in staying connected to someone. When you don't have that FaceTime, it strikes me that it's really easy to change the rules of conduct. And I see this in individuals when they're pushing back. There's a lot of randoms that will jump on someone's timeline and just kind of like just hammer them. But I also wonder if I could call up some of these people that are doing the hammer. Could I see at some point that they were in alignment with the individual? not for better or for worse, but just to understand like who's changed here, who's actually the one that's changing. Maybe understand what was it about the product or the relationship in the beginning that brought those two individuals together. The empathy engine idea. How do I understand the nature of my relationship with you at a deeper level so that I'm not making mistakes in public on Twitter where someone then, if I am the go-getter to say, hey, Roland, I really don't like what you're doing with that product. What if I've already at some point posted that I kind of was on board with you until such and such happened? And I think that might change the accountability. It might not change the accountability because people could just still kind of thumb their nose at it, but it would be reflectively valuable. That would be valuable for me because I am involved in a lot of little digi spaces that I've kind of forgotten why I connected with a person in the first place. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to scroll back through my timeline and look at tweets and replies and sort of just call up I can't see my interactions with you specifically, which would be good for me to see. I think that's one way to humanize this conversation so people stick around a little bit longer.
I like that idea.
Good talk. Well, dude, you dropped this topic. This was I didn't realize its impact on me until you brought it back up. So solid.
Okay. So that's, we're moving in. This was our second summer school. And I'm looking forward to next week's session. If there is one, we don't know, right? We don't, because it's summer. We don't know what's happening.
We don't. 2 weeks from now, I'm traveling for a little bit. So
I think I am too.
So not next week, but the following week?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely, man.
Okay. Well, have a great Saturday and we'll be talking soon.
For sure, man. Take care.
You too. See ya.